Right now, there are millions of people experiencing a heart chakra opening. But the interesting thing is, oftentimes during this heart chakra opening, initially what happens is the person will feel more closed off than before, more numb, more detached, more apathetic, more cut off from the very thing that is much closer to them. And that's why I'm making this video, to share with you the most common side effects of a heart chakra opening, which, by the way, I think we can all agree is exactly what this planet needs. A lot of people right now are feeling numb, are feeling just burnt out, disconnected, and the exact opposite, essentially, of a heart chakra opening. But what's really happening is that they're becoming more discerning. You might feel numb and discombobulated even after watching a bunch of TikTok videos. And that's because your heart isn't necessarily a fan of that. Your heart knows that that's not the best way to experience connection, for example, if that's why you're on there. And what you're experiencing is all the different stuff that's been put in your life designed to almost pretend to give you what all of us are seeking, which is love, which is happiness, which is joy, which is a feeling of being connected to something special. You're seeing through it. And what you're seeing is just how many props, how much of your life really doesn't have much at all to do with what you're actually looking for. And this is not a total numbness and shutting down. It's just when your life is filled with so many things like that, it can create that illusion. Also, these things in our life have another effect, which is to kind of overstimulate the senses, which can require like a battery that needs charging. You can feel kind of down, even when you're with, say, someone you love. And this feeling of being disconnected, a lot of people are reaching out, and I see people talking about it online, and it's a good thing because it's going to lead inevitably to people realizing why this is happening and making some necessary changes. So as your heart chakra opens, you might find yourself peeling away from the things that overstimulate you and bring you down and cause you to feel less connected than ever before. And what you'll notice parallel to this, which is kind of a bleak situation, because listen, most of us have plenty of stuff in our life that creates this effect. But parallel to that, you'll get little glimpses of what it really feels like to be connected, and it'll stick out like a sore thumb. I experienced this in Sedona not that long ago, running an in-person event. Before that, it was about, gosh, I don't know. It was probably over a year, I think, which is rare for me, of doing something like that, some type of in-person connective experience. And I was literally just awestruck by how much I needed that. How much I needed to not just talk to a camera, which is, no offense, I'm happy to do it, but there's something deeper when you're really with people. And I felt that. And it restored meaning to even this, to everything I'm doing, because it reminded me that this is about the people. And anyway, you might have your own version of that. It could be, I get it sometimes watching movies. I'm watching this show I love so much, Resident Alien. Kind of a clever show, in my opinion. It's a comedy. But there's also, I think, a lot of like subtle wisdom that's being bestowed about human nature and sort of the potentials of human nature. And I'll watch the show sometimes, and it's not even a sad part, but I'll get choked up because I can just feel what's being conveyed here. It's like, just like the simple acts of kindness, for example, is like a very special thing. And when you experience that, even if you're witnessing it, it can show you the contrast. Like, this is what matters to you. This does not. The new car does not. The job promotion, the social status does not. The beautiful house does not. It's this. And when your heart chakra opens, you have this discernment and can see very clearly what really matters to you, what really lights up your heart, and what does not. Another thing you'll find yourself experiencing is the rising up of very powerful, potent emotions that you may not have been dealing with, that were previously unconscious and kind of stuck out of your conscious awareness. All of a sudden, life, and it doesn't take much, will provoke them up to the surface. And you can have like waves of anxiety, waves of fear come over you. I used to get this, for example, a few years ago when I was living in this one house that I loved so much. Anytime the landlord would send me a text, and I'd see it was from him, this guy named Destan, I would feel this strong, like, just this panic, almost like a panic. And you know what? It was always just checking up on us. It was never anything bad. But because it triggered some type of past experience where I felt unsafe, that this sort of situation resembled that, it caused this big flooding of emotions. Now I was luckily, I knew it wasn't because of him or because of the text or even because of the situation. It was just that those emotions were ripe for recognition and release, essentially. And you might find this happening in your own life. And I say this because it's easy to kind of get down on yourself and to think that you're being unstable. You need to get your emotions in check or control yourself, get a handle on those emotions, buddy. It's like, no, these are emotions that were always there. And now you know they're there. And they do come up sometimes unexpectedly, sometimes at inconvenient times, but nonetheless, as Carl Jung would say, your shadow can do a lot more harm in the dark than it can in the light. But this is, of course, very paradoxical because we're talking about a heart chakra opening. This is the stuff you have to go through in order to get to the heart chakra. And if you ever do breath work or transformational breath work, it's like you experience this very, very clearly. It's like you get to go through the different layers. A common one is initially during the ceremony, people will get real tense, like agitated. And then this turns to like anger. Oh my God, I'm so mad at my father, or I'm so mad at this thing that happened in my life. And underneath the anger is hurt. Underneath that is fear. Underneath that is peace, bliss. So a lot of times people can mistake their big emotions for moving away from the heart chakra opening. They're going, no, you got to go through the different layers. And this is something you don't have to necessarily do, although it can certainly help. In fact, I run these ceremonies oftentimes for free. If you want, I'll leave a link down below if you want to check it out and come to the next one, the breath work I'm referring to. No pressure, but the point is, like, a lot of times you don't have to do that, only if you feel kind of like aligned with it or guided or inspired. This will just start happening in your life. Life will trigger these emotions, whether you're doing breath work or not. And the moral of the story is it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It implies awareness, healing, and getting closer to the core. One of the more physical side effects of this is feeling tension, pressure, tingling, even palpitations, like heart fluttering in your chest, which of course can create a lot of anxiety. And it can lead one to think they're having a heart attack or have some type of major heart problem. Now listen, I'm not a doctor. I invite you to use your own common sense, but just know for what it's worth that this is a very commonly spoken about temporary harmless symptom of chakra, this subtle energy moving through your heart chakra system. You know, if you're having a heart chakra opening to begin with, that probably implies you are becoming aware in general of subtle, what they call subtle energy. Subtle energy is like a non-physical energy that is real. People, it's like prana, life force, chi or ki. There's different names for it. Kundalini. It's like this electrical life force energy that, though you might not be able to extract and show somebody as a doctor or scientist, it's subjectively it's experienced. And you start to feel this energy moving through your body. A lot of times what it does is this energy will move upward from the base of your spine, and sometimes it'll kind of get snagged or concentrate itself where there are blockages that just so happen to oftentimes fall in alignment with the various chakra points. And what this tension oftentimes is it's like that energy working on that particular area. So, you know, a lot of another common place this can build up is in the throat. People who struggle to kind of speak up for themselves sometimes have a physical tension in their throat, making it difficult. But this is a good thing. This is like a work in progress. Same with the third eye, the crown area, and of course, in this particular case, in the heart area. But when it builds up there, sometimes there are other sort of like almost physical side effects, like your heart fluttering, anxiety, tension, pressure, etc. I just wanted to mention that. But again, I'm not a doctor, so you got to use your own judgment here, but it's very common. One of the more challenging and kind of like maybe far extended but relevant side effects of a heart chakra opening that I've noticed in myself and other people is a lot of things in your life might start to either change or you'll want to change them. Because as you're opening up your heart and realizing what doesn't matter, what ultimately does not satisfy you versus what does, you might feel compelled to make some pretty big changes in your life. You might feel like you're not going to be happy until these adjustments are made in your life circumstance, but you also might not know exactly how to go about doing this. Many times you can feel kind of stuck at the awareness level of this is not right, this does not satisfy me, but what do I do? Practically, how do I change this? Is this even possible? And that can create a bit of torment because at least before you thought things were how you wanted them. Now you know they're not, but you don't know how to change it. This is where the faith comes in. It takes time. We're on earth and time is speeding up, as they say, and things are changing, but it still takes time for us to sort of manifest a new reality based upon the person that we're sort of growing into. And luckily, you need that intention. You need that, I want this. I want this change. I don't know how to get it, but I want it. That is kind of like this intention that is kind of put out there. And though there's no telling when, at some point, it will mirror back to you the how, the way. And a lot of times the way, it's a lot faster than you may have thought. I remember it wasn't even that long ago, for example, when we had moved into the house before this one we have here. And we moved in around the summertime. And then when the kids went back to school in the fall, we realized how much traffic there was and how exhausting and annoying it was to have to go back and forth to the school. On paper, it seemed a lot closer than it actually was driving, and the drive was stressful. I have 3 kids. They're into sports and stuff, so it's like we don't just go to the school twice, there and back. We go like bop, 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 like multiple times a day. We were spending hours a day driving, and we had just signed this 18-month lease. We thought, man, this is not ideal. We want where we are now, we want a more peaceful vibe. We want to be closer to the school. We want to have more nature. And there was this sort of awareness that this is not right. This does not fit. But in our minds, well, we got about 12 months, 15 months left because of the lease and there's no way of getting out of it. This is like the rational way of observing the situation. But you know what happened one day? About only a couple of weeks into sitting with this, driving the kids to and from school, driving ourselves nuts, my wife and I, taking turns, trying to find ways to make it work. I got a text from my landlord. And this time I wasn't afraid like before because I was hoping it might be what I thought it might be. And the text said, "Hey, Vic, how's it going? Can we talk?" And I thought, what would be a reason my landlord would want to speak to me? So out of just strong curiosity, I just said, yes, I'm available right now. I got on the phone with him and he said, "Hey, Vic, how you liking the house?" And I was like polite. I was like, "Oh, it's great. It's cool." I didn't like complain about the drive. He said, well, that's good and bad because I'm happy you like the house, but he explained that he had his business was failing or something, and he kind of asked if we'd be willing to leave because he wanted to come back and live in his own house. And I was like, yeah, there's a good chance, maybe. I said, let me think about it. So I told my wife, I was like, can you believe this? We were just complaining about the drive, and all of a sudden, it's never happened to me before. The landlord just wants to move back into his house. So we went onto our phones, went onto Trulia and looked at like houses, that we wanted to maybe rent. And this house right here that checked all the boxes and then some had gone on the market that very day. And we went and saw it the next morning, and here we are. A lot of times that's how manifestation will work. When you start to open up your heart, when you start to open up to the power of yourself, the power and the nonlinear nature of the universe. But sometimes it involves sort of sitting with that tension like we did. In our mind, what we were thinking we're either going to rent another house like right by the school and live there most of the time, which seemed like we don't want to have to do that. It's expensive, obviously. Or we are thinking like, we were like trying to rack our minds around it. But all that had to happen was that tension needed to be sustained long enough for an opening to kind of manifest. And that's not the first time that type of thing has happened to me. And I'm sure it's not the first and only time it's happened to you as well. Because as you open up your heart chakra, you strengthen your core, as my friend Aaron Doughty calls, your vibrational set point gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and starts to sort of like influence your outer reality much faster and much more efficiently. But a lot of times you will find yourself in these periods where everything seems like it's going wrong. You're feeling more numb, less heart chakra open than ever before, more miserable in your situation. You have the awareness of where you want to go, and you're stuck here where you don't want to be. And there's this tension, this angst, this feeling of being cut off from that which you crave, this hopelessness, and all that pressure will start to shift things for you sooner rather than later. And I wanted to film this video to kind of remind you of what you already know. You already know that. You've already experienced this. But every time it happens, you probably forget, right? I know I do. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe, I wanted to film this video and share that core message with you to remind you of what you already know. You already know how life works. You already know that the transformation process involves going into the shadow, going into the pain, temporary stagnation. I'm reading this book about reality transurfing right now. Super cool book. And he talks about balancing forces. He says the universe is always trying to strike a balance. So whenever you're like really down and out, cut off, and you're sort of pinched off in this sort of negative direction, there's an exact opposite that you will swing to, because the universe is going to help balance this out. It's not really a fact. He made it forth like an observation, which I've also noticed in my life as well. And I'm sure you have as well, which is why, again, I made this video to remind you of what you already know.